Awesome. Okay, great. So you were just talking about, I think it was called situation coaching.
Perspective coaching, but let's back up since you're recording. Let's back up and just talk for a minute about the concept of being inquisitive with Eric in particular, but with really almost anyone
Mhm.
who has that, sort of personality or characteristic of, really the way I look at it is Eric's the kind of guy whose initial reaction is to say, no, I can't do that.
Yes.
Although 60 to 80% of the time, he eventually does it. He eventually gets there. So our goal is to figure out how to compress that time, how to get rid of that annoying, frustrating time when he's saying, I can't do it, and how to get him to understand that, in fact, he can do it. And so one of the things we talked about is being inquisitive. Instead of saying, Eric, I need you to figure out the optics of the eye or whatever it might be, say to him, Eric, one of the things I was thinking about for this is that perhaps this is what we need to figure out. What do you think? Does that make sense? Is this what we, and keep using we, not I or you, is this what we should be figuring out? Should we be focused on this? It seems like we should, but hey, Eric, you're on the front lines. You've had a lot of experience with this. Does this seem like what we should be focusing on? Presumably he says yes. Then how do you think we should go about doing it? Now, if he backs off there and says, well, I can't do that, have Jeff Casey do it, don't ask me to do it. That's when we talk about perspectives coaching. And we can try and take a look either at a situation where you worked with Eric. Ideally, it would be a situation where you worked with Eric and he initially said he couldn't do something, but then he ended up doing it. And point that out to him. Say, Eric, remember when we were working on such and such, and initially your thought process was, no, I can't do it. I'm not the right person. How did that end up working out? And he'll say, well, actually, I guess I figured that out. I was able to get it done. What did you do then that enabled you to get it done? What were the things that you were able to pull out of your arsenal and bring to bear? How did you bring your intellect to that problem and solve it? Let's use those same tools now to solve this thing.
Got it. Okay, I'll do my very best. I also, have my limitations there because if somebody's unresourceful, it upsets me. I'm
Okay.
an immigrant. I came from a third world country and somehow ended up in beautiful Scottsdale. And I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's what I think.
Okay. So let's unpack that for a second. Okay. First of all, do you really believe if you can do it, anybody can do it?
I believe anybody that has gone through an interview process and that we've selected and that's worked, certainly somebody that maybe not everybody can do it. You're right. Um, yes.
What are the skills and the characteristics that have enabled you to succeed?
I just don't take no for an answer.
Okay. I love that. So I think you can share that with Eric in a way that will help him by saying, Eric, it's really fascinating to me that your default is always like sort of this negative, no, I can't do it. And it's funny to me because my default is always, I can do it. And so why, ask him again, be inquisitive. Why is your initial reaction always that you can't do it? I'm curious. Keep saying, I'm curious. Bring him out. Get him to the point where he views you as an ally and he drops his fist. Maybe he says to you, you know what? Because my father told me I was a loser for my whole life. That's why. Then you can say, okay, now I get it. Now I understand this guy. You know what, Eric? You're really freaking smart. You can do this. Come on, man. Let's work on this together. Let's get it done. Let's figure it out. And, start to get into his psyche a little bit. But it's really fascinating that your default is, yeah, I can do this. Even if it looks insanely difficult, I'll figure it out. And his psyche, his initial default is, I can't do it.
There's also a reason for it. I mean, one of the books that's made the biggest impact on me is Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, right? Where he talks about Henry Ford actually not having been as bright as many of his engineers, but somehow he got it done. And yeah, and I found that inspiring.
Right. And so no reason why you can't share books with him, talk to him about things like that. be a gentle coach for him. You're understanding now how quickly you get frustrated with somebody who doesn't have there are two things that you have, and he's got maybe one and he doesn't have the other. You have intellectual horsepower and you have drive. That's a great combination. Many people have one and not the other. I think Eric has a fair amount of intellectual horsepower. I think his drive is what the problem is.
Yes, exactly. Also, in general, when I give him timelines, for example, something that just boggles my mind, we have these contracts and for remote patient monitoring, and I want them to be uploaded just like the competitors are doing, so people can look at them. And if we make changes, as our contract states, we don't have to then send out emails or anything else. It's going to be reflected on the website. So, Eric, please upload these to the website. Oh, yeah, I don't really think that's a high priority, Ramin, so that's going to have to wait, and we can probably get this on there like in a week or two.
Okay, so ask him. You need to really dig in with him, right? And say to him, okay, if you don't think that's not a high priority, can you share with me what the other priorities are that are getting in the way of you getting that done before a week? You need to get to the point where you understand exactly what he's thinking, and you need to understand how many hours he's willing to dedicate to this, because maybe Eric thinks this is a 9 to 5 job, but you think it's a 14-hour a day job. This is a startup. People don't work 9 to 5 in startups, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want this to succeed, Eric, you're going to have to be willing to put more time in. And if you're not willing to put more time in, I get it. I understand it. We're going to need to find a different way to do this. You need to not continue to frustrate yourself much longer, because you're going to blow up. You're going to keep holding it in, and then you're going to blow up at something that is not necessarily what you're really angry about. What you're really angry about is this accumulation of things that's going on, right?
Yes, that's part of it. And then, of course, there's a lot of frustration towards myself because, I simply have not done what you've admonished me to do, which is exactly right. There's personal things going on. There's personal things going on. Don't let that get in the way. So you have a practice where you knew that before you started the startup, right? So now that you've put multiple six-figure figures into the startup, get it to profitability, make it happen. Also, more importantly, change those patients' lives that you set out to change their lives for, right? And so my frustration is that I haven't really put my best foot forward, and I have allowed the standard at Preventa to be lower than what I normally set as a standard in any organization that I'm a part of.
Ask Eric, are you comfortable with the standard at Preventa? Are you comfortable with the way we're doing things? Does this meet with your definition of, top-notch, A+ kind of work?
He'll ask me, what do you mean?
Okay. I'd say, Eric, when I go through my life as a surgeon, I can either do an absolutely, close to perfect job each time I have surgery and just take the incredible care with each patient, or I could be like a factory and just, yeah, it's fine. It's good enough. It's good enough. Which are you doing? Are you doing it's good enough? Or are you taking care on every single project you work on to make sure that it's a step ahead of the competition, that it is absolutely state of the art? If he can't answer that question in a positive way, the two of you are never going to work together well, because you're a perfectionist. You want everything to be right.
Exactly.
If he doesn't understand that, how did you get to Eric to begin with? How did you end up
Happy
hiring him?
to discuss that, and also would love to quickly underscore what you're saying. I don't want any of my consumers, which are ultimately physicians, to get onto our portal and see anything other than beautiful, right? Because there's plenty of competitors in this space that take blood pressure remotely. So it would need to be like, wow, this looks great. This is a cool looking website, right? And to Eric, it's like, no. I mean, you're clearly not an engineer. We need, his favorite word, an MVP, a minimal viable product, right? And it's like, yeah, but viable can mean different things. Viable can mean a consumer looks at it and says, ugh, right? And yeah, it could theoretically be used, but they don't want to use it because it's not visually attractive. So just to underscore exactly what you're saying and some of the challenges I run into. The way I found Eric was at a meeting. It was called the Retina Society. It was actually in Boston at this point, something like maybe 5-6 years ago. And he was awarded, well, first there was a competition of a variety of different ophthalmic startups, and he was a part of one startup, and they received an award. And I thought that their technology was really cool because it involved optics. And I thought, man, I got to step up there and talk to this guy. And I got his contact information.
Can you make a go of Preventa with Eric as the lead engineer?
He slows things down.
So far you've told me he slows things down and he's looking at the minimal viable product. So it'd be one thing if you said to me, Bob, he slows things down, but man, when he's done, it is beautiful. But that's not what you're telling me.
No, but some of it is. See, that's the problem. Like whenever
Right.
he's involved with, for example, I actually want to show you this stuff. You know, where when he went in and he segmented the vascular tree with some of his interns that he got, and he's able to actually have the computer determine what's an artery, what's a vein, right? And he's doing that with more and more ability to be accurate, right? That stuff blew me away. I really thought this is really amazing. But I think he's more of a specialist than he's willing to admit. That's part of the problem, right?
Okay.
And then, of course, you know, he's getting vested on a monthly basis at this point, right? And I will need to know exactly the percentage, and I'm actually calling the accountant to really know exactly where he stands with that. It's not an exorbitant percentage or anything like that. And I have mentioned something on the phone, and that continues. I'm a bit terrified what would happen if I really kind of used my normal management style, which is much inferior to what you're presenting me with here, which would be, hey, Eric, let me just be honest with you, right? I really like you. You're a great guy, but I feel like things are progressing slowly, and I feel like I'm getting a lot of resistance whenever I talk to you. I feel like, you know, and in general, my management style is, look, I'm going to be really good to you. I'm going to teach you anything I can, but I'm going to expect a lot. And then if it's just too much for you, I totally understand. I will help you find a spot where you're better suited, right? And I do, and I find people jobs wherever, and I go the extra mile for that too. With him, I'm terrified because I really don't have a backup plan, and I'm not sure how to find one either, which you and I have talked about. And that's where my interactions feel stifled. So I have my frustrations, but I feel like I can't really be Ramin because it's like, make sure you don't piss him off, because if he's gonna throw in the towel, I don't know exactly how to manage our databases, right? All that would fall apart. I don't have any access to any AI engineers whatsoever. Some of the grant writing would fall apart, and so on and so forth. And again, my objective, actually, because I'm a very fair-minded guy, I think you know this by now, is I want him to be successful, but I want him to be successful at whatever he is best at. And if he's not best at being CTO and he's going to be the AI guy in a thriving AI company, great. He's going to have an important role. He's going to win. And he's not going to be frustrated by, yeah, well, you know, how the website looks. I really don't give a damn. Right?
Several things to talk about there. First of all, you said I can't manage and be Ramin.
With him, yeah.
Right. One of the really critical things for you to keep in mind is that while you should never change who you are and you should never be inauthentic, that doesn't mean you shouldn't adjust. Okay. And so I am not a Duke University basketball fan. I will disavow any knowledge of that or any allegiance to them. But Coach Krzyzewski has a great line. I heard him being interviewed, and somebody said to him, God, over 30, 40 years, you've succeeded. Sometimes you've had teams that were great rebounding teams. Sometimes you had teams that played defense. Sometimes you had teams that were great shooters. Sometimes you had teams that were fast. How have you done that? And he said, I failed my first few years as a coach, and I started to succeed when I realized it's my job to adjust to my team, and it's not their job to adjust to me. That I need to learn how to adjust to each different team as they come in and to coach them differently based on who they are, meet them where they are. That's what makes him a great coach. And that's what will make you a great leader, is to meet Eric where he is. That doesn't mean you change. It doesn't mean you demand less. It doesn't mean you accept less, but the way you get there is different, right? The way you get that out of him is different. You might be able to call me and say, Bob, are you freaking kidding me? This is what you just gave me as a contract? This isn't your best work. Come on. And I'd go back with my tail between my legs. I'd stay up till 1 in the morning. I'd send you an A+ contract and we'd be fine. But you can't do that with Eric. It doesn't work with Eric. You have to manage him differently. And so to just consistently not, I wouldn't set a deadline with Eric. I would never set a deadline. I would say, Eric, when is a reasonable time for me to expect that from you? Instead of saying, I need that by next Monday,
Hmm.
Eric, when's a reasonable time for me to expect that from you? You'll find over time, more people than not will actually give you a tighter time frame than you want. But when's a reasonable time? Then if he says next Friday and you really want it by next Wednesday, then you say to him, okay, thank you for that. What's getting in the way of you getting it to me more quickly? Maybe I can help you prioritize.
Love it.
Right.
That's great. I guess what I'm asking you too is, I understand what you're saying, and I will take it to heart about the, staying authentic, but also, adjust. Um, it's just difficult for me sometimes to stay fully authentic when I feel like I'm with my back against the wall, right? It's
Mhm.
like, in other words, he seems oftentimes, this is not like me, he seems like he's the only option.
Mhm.
And I don't like that feeling.
So what do you need to do to start lining up an option B or a plan B? I mean, I think you need to start thinking about those things because right now he has all the leverage.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And I need to hit two birds with one stone. And that is ultimately finding a coach for him that would be able to replace him if that is necessary, or would be
So
able to
that's
join us and adjust his role in the company. Um,
so that's not a coach for him, in my view, and I'm just being picayune
a
about that.
mentor, sorry.
That's a mentor for
Yes,
him,
sir.
right?
Got it.
I could coach Eric in terms of getting more out of him and all that stuff, but I'm not somebody who could step into his shoes and do his things. You're talking about a mentor who can, talk to him about really specific scientific things. And, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Different role. And so, you could find somebody who's a senior person who could work with him and could step in on an interim basis. You got to be careful because you don't want Eric to feel threatened by whoever you bring in as a mentor. But I will tell you, one of my favorite lines is Charles de Gaulle saying, the graveyards are littered with indispensable people. You know, Eric's not indispensable. You're not indispensable. I'm not indispensable. So if worse came to worse and you just flipped out and said, that's it, I've had it with this guy, okay, it would cost. It would hurt. It would really hurt. But if you went after it within a couple, 3 months, you'd have a replacement in place and that person would catch up quickly and you wouldn't have to deal with all the frustrations and everything else that you have. Right now, you've got a guy who thinks he's just holding the hammer over your head and he can act however he wants with impunity because he thinks he's irreplaceable. Nobody's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. So I need to develop a strategy though. And Jeff Casey told me, hey, just look for a headhunter, right? Now, a headhunter that would be able to find me an engineer. How do I find the headhunter, right? How do I find a reputable headhunter?
I don't know. You're pretty resourceful.
Yep, LinkedIn.
You can start on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
I
And you
just
want,
also have somebody that's extremely well connected in the startup community, and I'm talking to him right now. So I'm wondering if you happen to know a headhunter, especially
um,
on the East Coast, because it'd be nice if they were actually in the same location. I think that's somewhat important.
I do know some headhunters, whether they are right in the appropriate field that we're in. Well, let's do this, Ramin. Why don't you send me a job description?
Yes, it's already done. I'll send it to you.
Send me the job description and I will run it by a couple guys I know and see and say, hey, is this somebody you could source for us?
Yep, perfect. Got it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So that would get us to the point of not feeling as though Eric is holding all the cards. The other thing is there has to be an outsourced capability that you can start talking to, that if Eric falters and you decide you need to get rid of them, that you can bring a consultant in for 30, 60, 90 days to keep things stable and to keep things going. Whether Jeff Casey can point you in the direction of somebody in a firm who would do it, I don't know. I don't know where
Fortunately
that
not. I
person.
asked him already.
Are there other, what's the profile of the person you're looking for?
Yeah, I've
Is it
got that. Actually, the person that gave that to me on my request was Eric, and what he said was basically requirements for a CTO contingency plan, right? Um, Resourceful and willing to work in a very unstructured manner. Why don't I just actually email this to you instead of
go
reading it?
ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to email this right now. Um, and yeah, let me go ahead and do that. Perfect. Compose. Bob. Okay, CTO coach, I'm just going to call it. Perfect. All right. So let me go ahead and send this out right now.
Okay.
It's out.
So let's go back up to 10,000 feet for a couple of minutes. What, in your mind, what are the next things that you would like to have happen in what order? What would get you comfortable
Get me comfortable with.
with the way everything is going right now? I mean, you're at a certain level of frustration with the way
Yeah,
things are going. So what would make you more comfortable in what order?
I think the first thing is I want to have a better overview about the various pillars that I've pointed out, as well as also about the grant progress, and have a intelligently put together schedule that allows me to spend the 5 days a week that I can spend on Preventa, not full time, but where I have time to spend on Preventa, significant time, and make sure that we're hitting on all cylinders. I sometimes feel like certain things are being ignored. Like right now, for example, I don't know exactly what's happening in web development. I don't know exactly what's happening with AI development. And I would like to have a constant overview.
Is there a way to just put together a working document with Eric that you just pop up on Google Docs and say, this is our working document, right? This is what we're working on. And we're going to agree that we will each review this no less than every 48 hours and update it as appropriate.
There is, and credit to Eric, I'd asked him to do it and he's done it. It's on an app called Jira. You may be
Okay.
familiar with them.
Not, but that's
Okay.
okay.
It's a Microsoft app. And so long story short, it allows me to look in the various areas. I have not been particularly organized about this, and I've never had to, sort of look at a company that has such vast, things to overlook, from legal to, AI development to web development. I just, not sure exactly how to best develop a system that allows me to go through it. I know I can, but I have not taken the time to do it. And if you have any hacks to cut through the crap quicker.
Really just to assign a value to each one each time. Maybe, look at it from a big picture view and say, okay, that's a 5, that's a 3, that's a 1. Go across the line, then go back 15 minutes later after you've done all the assigning and say, okay, now I'm going to look at the 5s. I'm going to look at what's on fire, what's burning, what do I need to take care of right away. It's a 3, can wait till next week. Next week it might be a 5, but right now it can wait. First, determine in your mind how much time you have to give to the project, then do your signing, and then figure out what realistically you can hope to accomplish. Nobody ever ran a marathon 26.2 miles at once. You run a marathon a couple, 3, 4 miles at a time, right? You go out there, you say, all right, I'm going to start, I'm going to get to the 5 mile mark. When I get to the 5 mile mark, I'll worry about getting to 10. When I get to 10, I'll worry about getting to 15. You don't start at 1 and say, I'm going to run right to 26.2. You'll blow your brains out if you do, right? So that's the same way about doing this. You can't look at it and say, oh my God, I have to do everything right now. Just take off one chunk, focus on it, finish it, complete it, knock it off, then go to the next.
Yes, sir. Sounds smart. Okay. Yep. So sort of an overview is lacking on my behalf a little bit. Right now, the focus is, of course, on the grant because that's, you know, a seven-figure number that we're after. And so we're wanting to make progress. And with that, you know, really the driving force is Jeff Casey. What a rock star. I would love to actually have Jeff be a full-time, you know, actively managing partner at Preventa because he's such a firebrand, great guy.
So what's going to happen with the SBIR? Does it matter that Sam was involved in the first grant and he's no longer here? Do they
Doesn't
care
seem to
about
be,
that?
no, it doesn't seem to be an issue from what I understand. That Sam is not a part of it. He was not the you know, PI anyways, so we're good there. Sam also, you know, I mean, he has a 10% stake in the company, right? At the time of his exit. So with that, he has an interest in making Preventa successful, and he's open to giving us input on the financial piece of the grant. At least that's what he said. We'll see how much time we really spend on it.
What has been lacking since Sam left?
Having somebody managing all operations 7 days a week, or even 5 days a week, because I'm not available on Wednesdays and Fridays due to, you know, just a very busy clinic schedule. That's one thing. Continuously sort of having their finger on the marketplace, right? Reading about, you know, new business developments and so on. Looking for talent in a more aggressive manner by virtue of having more time to do that. Unfortunately, Sam's sort of Sam's bookkeeping was a semi terrible disaster, which my accountant had to had to clean up, and you know, he's done that, so that was a good amount of work. So he wasn't really keeping all the finances in such great order, or the records keeping. So that's not really a loss. So my accountant has taken over a lot of that with his team. And that's not cheap, but it works, and it works well, right? I just want to have all my ducks in a row. I think
What are
that's
you
it.
what are you willing to invest in Preventa at this point, both emotionally, time-wise, and financially to make it work? Where's your head on this whole thing?
Yeah, my head is in a place where I'm willing to spend significant time, even on weekends where I have my daughter. So, you know, in other words, I really want this to work out. And I honestly think that Preventa, ideally, is much more so my future than my retina practice.
Really?
Mhm. Yeah,
Why?
uh, two reasons. I think it's so much more possible to touch lots of lives, providing the technology that does it, and facilitating actually the diagnostic ability of physicians, right? By giving them the technology, including myself. You know, I was just actually approached by somebody who goes into patients' homes and does lab work there, takes blood, right? He's developed quite the interesting company, and I was hoping we'd get to touch on that, maybe not today. Anyways, so he's asking me, hey, you know, would you be willing to partner up with me? I'm going to do retinal screenings now. I'm going to have a portable retina camera and take those in. While they take the labs, they might as well do that, and I get paid for it. And then you could get paid $5 a interpretation for those patients, which I thought, well, that's interesting. And he's doing that for patients that cannot go to the doctor, right? So it's a very limited patient pool, but he's got an in with a hospital called Banner Hospital, a large hospital system. And
Yes.
of course, you're familiar with it. But, you know, so there's a possibility there to collaborate with him and to, you know, hopefully do some good things together. But he does not have the technology. He even had to ask me, well, what camera should I use? And I told him, well, interesting, you should ask, right? Because we're developing a camera, because there's not really one in the public space that is able to efficiently and cost effectively take pictures. Then he doesn't know what software he would be using, right? Well, we just so happen to have the software. And that is why I think we can solve, not just those 18,000 patients' problems, which, in a very rapid manner. Other people obtain the photographs. I, as a retina specialist, am sitting there and I have 1 or 2 images per patient. And now with a swipe of a hand, I can make a difference in their lives, right? At a fraction of the time that I would normally spend with them. And that's one of the reasons why I want to really make this work. But beyond that, I feel like I've been given so much opportunity. I mean, I get to wake up in America every morning. I don't take that for granted. And so I feel like, if I'm just going to be a retina doctor and do what I do there, which, you have been very kind to sort of point out as something that is a great opportunity too, and I agree. But if that's all I do with my training and my interest in technology, I feel I've really not lived my life fully.
Okay, fair enough. So if that's the way you feel about it, and I love your energy and your enthusiasm and everything, then do you have a plan to get from where you are today to the success? Is there even a plan?
There is a plan. The plan is that I have my friend Mitch Ross, who's a phenomenal Harvard-trained cardiologist, get him going with the remote patient monitoring, right? Have that be a stream of revenue in order to, at least break even. And then once we are breaking even on that front, then I want to hire more people. I want to hire more engineers. Of course, we also want to apply for the grant, which also will give us an opportunity to hire more people and more engineers. And what would it ultimately mean to be airborne? Well, that's really a great question, because there are rivaling ideas which poses a challenge, right? One is, I want to develop, and I'm designing a study as we speak. I want to develop a new standard for the assessment of hypertension in all patients with hypertension. And what I want to do is I want to have an objective manner where patients are not required to take their blood pressure at home, which some will do, and many won't, but instead where I can have you, let's assume, of course, you're way too healthy for that, but let's assume you were a hypertensive patient, right? When you come to see your cardiologist, I would want for you to get a retinal photograph so that they can look at what's called end organ damage, your vasculature that we can look at in the eye without being invasive, right? Putting you through a device and putting radioactive substances through your vascular system, which has about a 1% stroke risk, right? Instead of doing that, well, every 3 months, we'll just take a photograph of your eyes. We'll have our AI analyze it and then determine, hey, Bob, guess what? The blood pressure medicine we're putting you on seems to not really make your blood vessels healthier, right? When it should. Now, some of my interest in that is going to be research. What I mean by that is, it has been established that some degree of hypertensive retinopathy can be reversed, right? Or even just the lack of progression might be meaningful, right? However, is that true for 70-year-olds, or is that only true for 50-year-olds, right? And a 70-year-old, well, it's all calcified. Is that still possible? We don't really know. So what I'm suggesting here as this research project leading to a product, right, and a service hasn't been corroborated as truly being viable. So there's that problem with the hypertensive approach. However, if it is, I mean, talk about a home run, right? If we establish, what's otherwise a hemoglobin A1C for diabetics every, 3 months, and we have the AI that's been corroborated in research as being able to identify changes in the vasculature that indicate better or worse blood pressure control, that's a paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love your enthusiasm. I love what you want to do. You have 24 hours in a day. You got to sleep at least 6 or 7 of them. You got to take care of your daughter for a few. You got to be in clinic for a number of hours. So you have limited time frame and you have way more stuff than time.
Yes, because we've only touched on remote patient monitoring in the hypertensive product and project. We haven't even touched on the fact that we also have the ability to take photographs of patients, and we have a platform for rapid diagnosis. That's a whole different, thing. I agree.
So we're going to be finishing up here time-wise in the next few minutes. I want to make sure we cover what, we need to cover. From my perspective, I think one of the big issues for you is going to be to really figure out how to balance what you want to focus on, what you want to do, with the investment you're willing to make in terms of time, money, and personnel. The stuff you want to do is going to take more people. You don't have a CEO of Preventa. It's really hard for a startup to do anything without a CEO. Right now, there is a lot of money on the sidelines looking for projects. I'm working with a biotech in the, it's in a hot field. It's in the RNA field, so it's very hot. But they raised $650,000 in 30 days. And I mean, like that, from friends and family kind of raise. There is money out there. You have to determine if you want to bring in outside money and fund this, or if you want to continue funding it out of your own pocket. And you have a lot of decisions to make. And so I think as I listen to you and I listen to the excitement in your voice, you need to get focused and understand what your options are and then make decisions and move forward with them. But if you want to try and tackle all these broad things, you're going to need more money and more people. And it's going to be really critical that you, it's a friend of mine says, slow down to speed up. You're going to need to really look at it carefully, hire the right people so you don't have the frustrations you're having with Eric. And then eventually you will start to speed up and really move fast if you're financed appropriately and you have the right people in place. Doing it the way you're doing it now is extraordinarily difficult and extraordinarily frustrating. You're underfunded, under-resourced, and the resource that you have in place is not somebody who you're comfortable with. So it's tough. It's really tough.
Got it. Absolutely.
All right. So what are you going to do coming out of this meeting?
I'm going to get on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to find some recruiters for engineering talent. I'm going to think about whether I want to get funding, because I don't even really exactly know what that means, right? So, it's my understanding is that it's a slippery slope, and I need to really just get more understanding of, what does it mean when you get funding, right? So, where do you give up control, right? Who are you beholden to? When does it make sense to get funding? Should I try to accomplish some degree of profitability? Should I gather more intellectual property, right? All that. Getting focused and get clear. So I'm writing down, what does that mean?
By the way, you're completely correct in terms of funding. The further along you are, the less you have to give up and the more control you retain. You're absolutely right. It's a matter of what your willingness is to accept the pain of taking money out of your own pocket. If you say to me, it's no big deal, I'll take another 100,000 out and dump it into Preventa, great. Then you don't need to be looking elsewhere for funding. If you say to me, oh, I don't want to, then you need funding.
Yes, and the question is, which one is the wiser of the two approaches? I don't really care about my opinion. I care about what has the best track record of being a wise approach, right? Because I don't want to be one of those stubborn people. No, I must self-fund this because I don't want to give up control over something that then is not going to work out as great.
The only way you know the answer to that is with hindsight, right? 3 years from now, if you've given up 50% of the company and Preventa is an unbelievable success, you're going to look back and you're either going to say, well, it never would have been a success without, $1.5 million in outside funding, so I did the right thing. Or you're going to look back and say, God, we blew through $900,000 of that funding we didn't even need. I could have held on to a bigger percentage of the company. Oh, well. You're never going to know until you get there. So it's really a matter of what is your pain point, Ramin? What pains you more, paying more to get more people involved, or watching, Eric go slowly, which drives you crazier?
Yeah, that drives me crazy. That's not my style. Yeah.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to need to be thinking about, what does it mean to get funding? What does it mean if I ask friend and family? Because I'm not going to want to, they better get their money back, right? So if I get, money from friends and family. So I really need to think about that. And then I need to think about prioritizing, our various projects, and that's going to be tough, right? So,
Well, I think you need to do that first, because when you prioritize your projects, you should be able to put a dollar figure on things and sit there and say, okay, if we go in this order, I'm going to need $97,500 in the next 6 months. Oh, I can handle that. That's no big deal. Or, oh my God, to get all that done, I need $300,000. I don't think I want to pay $300,000. Whatever the case may be. So I think prioritizing is your first thing.
okay. Okay. Got it. And then I'll need to ask you, how do I get these kinds of numbers, right? Because, to you, that's pretty clear. I don't know how to go about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I heard you say something very interesting, and then we're going to tie this up. You said, oh, well, if I get money from friends and family, I have to make sure they get their money back. Not true. Okay, not true. It is an extraordinary risk. You tell everybody it's an extraordinary risk, and you say to them, I'm putting my own money in. If you would like this opportunity to invest with me, and if you believe in me, then I would be honored. But please understand, this has to be money you don't need. I mean, when I did this friends and family round for this other biotech, we made it extremely clear to everybody who invested, there's no singles in this game. There's probably no doubles. There's either grand slams or strikeouts. You're either getting none of it back, or you're getting 17 times your money back.
Got it.
And right. And if you're willing to take that risk, try and help change people's lives with this technology, great, come on aboard. And if you don't want to take that risk, I still love you. You're still my buddy, and we're fine.
Perfect.
So if you have in the back of your mind that you have to pay them back, then why bother taking their money? All it is a bridge loan then.
I understand. Okay. Okay. That's perfect. That's very wise. Thank you.
All right. All right. Time to close up shop. I will follow up with some notes about
Yep.
our conversation, but you've got it recorded, so that'll be even a better representation of everything we discussed.
Yes, although you need to give me access when I'm recording it, I believe, but I don't know exactly how that works. I've never recorded a Zoom meeting yet.
I have been on Zooms that have not, or that have been recorded. So let me look into that and figure it out. I'm leaving at the crack of dawn tomorrow morning for Florida. My sister's having a large birthday, big number.
All
Scary
right.
number.
All right.
My wife and I are going down to surprise her. So she has no idea we're going.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be wonderful. So we'll be there the rest of the week. So I may not have a chance to get you this if it takes me more than a couple minutes. But hey, I'm resourceful. I can Google how do you send a recording on Zoom. So we'll try and figure it out. If you'd like to schedule another meeting now, we can do that. Okay. So ideally, 2 weeks from right now.
Okay, let's do that. And then let's do it via text, because I really got to run to the bathroom.
Go to the bathroom. I'll figure it out and I'll text you.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
All right, Ramin. Take care of yourself. Be safe.
Bye. You too.
Bye.